The main item on our agenda today is to say farewell to Prof Wilson, who is stepping down as the president of the Legacy Society. And it's actually amazing, the man who actually initiated this all, he's sitting right at the back there, Dr. McNamara. He's the one who suggested Francis to take over from Stuart Saunders when Dr. Saunders resigned from the society. Now, for those of you who don't know, the society goes back to the early 1990s, when it was actually the Fuller Barnard Society for the medical school. So that then sort of went a little bit down, and eventually Jim thought it was good to appoint a legacy manager, and in 2011 we started up the Legacy Society for University of Cape Town. And it has grown tremendously. It was lovely. It grew from in the 20s now to over 300 people. And then the other thing today is also my last speech, because I have retired last week and I'm now going into a new phase of my life. But I'm not going to say much. Dr. Price here is going to talk about Francis. I just want to say welcome, and I hope you enjoyed this morning. Afterwards we will serve refreshments in the courtyard.
I do actually want to start with a thank you to Rene. Rene has really transformed the activity, the organization of the Heritage Society. And as he said, when he took over, we had 22 people who we knew who had informed us that they had written UCT into their wills in one way or another. And those of you who work in NGOs, and most of you I suspect, have also are philanthropists more generally to a number of organizations, so you will be associated with other organizations and NGOs, and you will know how important that is to the long-term sustainability through philanthropy of NGOs and of organizations that rely on that. And Rene has been part of a team, led a team, which both through interventions locally, through organizations, through going to see people one-on-one, through developing relationships, but also internationally, has grown that number, as I said, from 22, more than tenfold, into the 200s. And that's really a phenomenal achievement. And it has actually also translated into money. That since 2011, we don't have records really from before that, but since 2011, coming from the execution of estates, we have received some 62 million rand in the 6 years from 2011 to 2017. So that really tells you what an impact this has. And of course, that money is going to do all of the important strategic things that the university needs to do. And now more than ever, with the impact of the Fees Must Fall campaigns around the country, which has put much more pressure on fees, and fees are a huge component of our income. 60% of our annual income comes from fees, 40% comes from government. Of our regular income, I'm not talking about research, which has another stream. People write research grants and they, of course, generate money from that. But for this regular operating budget, 60% is from fees. There's a huge pressure on that. And so the income we generate from donations and from the states is really critical. It can be general, or it can be used for specific purposes. If you have a particular activity like the Barnard Fuller original society, which was dedicated, that money was dedicated to the medical school, the health science faculty. If you have a preferred target, a faculty or a project or financial aid for students or postgraduate studies or a particular area of research, we can do that. But what is really most helpful for us is something that is unrestricted into our endowment, so that as the needs of the university change over decades, that funding will have a permanent benefit and can be used where it's most needed. So I want to say thank you to Rene for that role, and let's just show our appreciation. But although Rene does the legwork and his team, most people will come out to an event because of Francis, because of the president. They have a connection from their past. They know the individual. Francis is an iconic figure. He has been part of the university. I don't know how long he's been part of the university for. Did you do your first undergraduate degree? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
You did, yeah. So that would be about 50 to 60 years that he's been part of the university, teaching in the university as a full-time staff member for over 30 years. But then that took him to retirement at 65, and given that he's now, about 78, I would say. Is that a good guess? Yeah. He looks only 70, but I know that you're about 78. That the subsequent 12 years, has put him in, he's been working as an honorary professor. If you're in the School of Economics, you'll know that he's in that economics building almost daily. You don't go to a seminar or a lecture where he's not present. I'm part of a group that works on poverty and inequality, a national project called the Nelson Mandela Initiative, and he's there guiding it, participating in community-based workshops, writing. You'll know he published a book very recently on the sort of brief history of the world, from dinosaurs to the present. And in fact, that was an important part of his role as president of the Heritage Society, because he took advantage of book launches all around the world to combine them, he gave us the privilege of inviting alumni to those book launches and using it as a venue to recruit people to the Heritage Society, and has been very successful. Do come in, please. There are seats at the back, and there's some seats at the front here too. Yeah. So he has played a fantastic role through his stature, through how well known he is, through the book and people's interest in reading it and in coming to the book launch. He's done this locally. He's been indefatigable in going to our alumni chapters all around South Africa, but also abroad. We did a trip together in the UK about 2 years ago, and I want to thank you, Francis, for this tremendous role you've played as the president of the society. And we actually gave Francis an honorary doctorate last year at UCT. Very unusual that we would give 2 awards at once, but we felt that the honorary doctorate was really a reflection of the body of his academic work. It was one gives honorary doctorates for through one of two routes. One is in recognition of an academic and their stature and their body of work that they've contributed through the university or to the world. But there's another route which is the kind of reason why we've previously given an honorary doctorate to Kofi Annan, for example, not because he's an academic, but because of the social and political impact he had on the world. Last year we honored Francis with an honorary doctorate, which was in recognition of his academic contribution. And today I want to honor him with the Vice Chancellor's Medal in recognition of the fantastic contribution he's made to the standing of the university amongst alumni in the Heritage Society. And so, Francis, I would ask you just to stand and let me, if I can open it. Yeah, I can. To hand over the Vice Chancellor's silver medal. Let me say there isn't a gold medal. And I know that although you are stepping down and Rene is stepping down, you will continue through the next years to talk to people, and whenever the opportunity arises, to wave the flag of UCT, to encourage people to think about UCT for their wills, if they can't afford to give money currently, and that although you're stepping down, we will still have you as part of the family and see you around, and we look forward to that. And Lindy as well, who's been with you by your side and been in many of these events with you and has also been flying the flag for UCT. And thank you enormously. So, well done and thank you.
Well, you know, everybody was very coy as to what this morning was about, but not in my wildest dreams did I ever think of the Vice Chancellor's Medal. Max, thank you very, very much indeed. I treasured that. I mean, I started being paid by a UCT Vice Chancellor in 1952 when I was a Boy Scout and doing Bob a Job with my friend Tony Brooker, who became a famous headmaster in Australia. Anyway, we went and clocked on the door at Glenara, and Dr. Davy himself came to the door, and we said, well, no, we were scouts and we wanted to wash his car for a bob each. Oh, he said, okay, so we washed his car for a bob each, but he upped it to 2 6, which is very unusual for a university vice chancellor. But since then I've been through about 6 vice chancellors, and they've all been wonderful people, and I feel deeply honored by that medal. Well, when one is asked to speak for the Legacy Society, one never quite knows who one will find in the audience. It could be the past chairman of Anglo-American in Johannesburg 5-star hotel. It could be the former Deputy Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court in Soweto. It could be the inventor of a special wood oil in Port Elizabeth. So one learns to be flexible and to have one's wits about one. On this occasion, true to form, my handlers have not told me much about my audience, but we are meeting at the Irma Stern, so I've made my own deductions, I hope correctly. Nothing too serious today, and not too hard an attempt to dig for gold, so I'll be very quiet about it. The first point to note is that when one is asked to do this job, there's no contract, no salary, and precious little by way of job description. When our current Vice Chancellor, who's been so kind to me a few moments ago, contacted me, he phoned me on my cell phone as I was driving on the R63 in the deep Karoo somewhere east of Graafrenet. Would I be willing to succeed Dr. Stuart Saunders as President of the Heritage Society? There's nothing really to it. A couple of dinners a year, a few after-dinner remarks, all very flattering and not too onerous. So, of course, I said yes. And then reality set in. Reality in the form of my handler, René Nolter. Where is René? There he is. René, who appears very unpushy, undemanding, has a way of getting things done. In my view, René is a bit like Kikuyu grass, which appears so flexible, and yet which has the ability to grow through concrete. So René overcame my resistance, any resistance I might have had to jetting around the country to Joburg, to Durban, to PE, and of course working in Cape Town, chatting up all kinds of UCT alumni and making not simply a few after-dinner remarks, but full-blown speeches. And then my handlers decided it was time to go overseas. Not just any time, but the worst possible time. Consider the following scenario. April 2016. UCT students have been up in arms on the theme of decolonization since Rhodes fell in the second week of March. I mean, Rhodes is just down. René organizes an expensive lunch in London with a potential donor, a very distinguished lady who loves UCT where she was a student, but she has a problem. Professor Wilson, can you tell me why I should give any money to a university whose students last month burnt a portrait of my grandfather? Not the easiest of questions, and I'm not going to enlarge on that here. But there was worse to follow, at least in terms of my apprehension. Next stop was Oxford, the University of Cecil Rhodes, and the meeting with UCT alumni, many of them Rhodes scholars, was in Rhodes House. Fortunately, the Vice-Chancellor was present that evening to shield us all if necessary. He spoke very well and the meeting passed off in a friendly and positive atmosphere, but that couldn't have been guaranteed beforehand. But all this goes to illuminate one of the main jobs of the Heritage Society, and this is my one serious point now, which is to interpret between the generations, the Legacy Society, to interpret between the generations, to help explain to those who left UCT 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, even 60 years ago what is happening today on the campus and what the liveliest students are thinking. This is enormously important in helping to bridge the gap between generations and to facilitate the process of change in the society. That seems to me a key role of the Legacy Society and the Heritage Society. In this work, I've simply been part of a team where my closest scrum mates have been René Nolter and Lou Intea, to whom I wish to pay tribute for all their help in devising strategies to approach alumni. Lou, where are you? There's Lou. We're homeboys. He's from the Eastern Cape, which is a decent place to come from. But a special thanks to René, who is outgoing manager of the Legacy Society and who's now stepping down, as you know, because he took me under his wing and said, okay, Francis, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And he's been wonderfully supportive right through, besides producing from time to time a ticket for the theatre, for the opera, which has been wonderful. So the second point, in addition to the interpreting role, seems to me the importance of heritage, of building our capital, and your part in helping to build it up. That there's no more important time in our history to be building and strengthening UCT than now, for the South Africa that is gradually emerging. And in my view, and I've been here 55 years or so, UCT is in better shape than it has ever been. It is more open to what's happening in society, it's more alert, it's got more thinking students, it's got more hassles on the edge which keep us on our toes, and it has first-rate research and good teaching. I think we're in really, I go to other universities around the world and I think, well, UCT is as good as it gets. It really is. It might be that we could think, and I invite you to help think through, that T.B. Davy had his 4 academic freedoms. But I think one might think about 4 marks of a good university, and I'm not saying I've got them right, but maybe we could think them up. Diversity is one, it seems to me. Tolerance is the second one, it seems to me. I think the third one would be the long-term loyalty of alumni. And fourthly, financial commitment by those who benefited to contribute back to the university from which they came. And those are not as strong yet as they could be, in my view. We need to build those up, but we've made enormous progress in the last 30 years. So despite everything, just to conclude my moans and groans, it has been strenuous at times, tricky at times, but I've enjoyed this job enormously. It's helped me learn much more about the university because one moves outside one's own little silos, and I'm very grateful to you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, for entrusting me with this responsibility. Thank you.